Platformers are some of my favorite games. They often feature cute characters and they allow you to explore colorful, original worlds and test your jumping skills in ways that other games can't. Needless to say, they're just a lot of fun. Cuckoo's Lost Pets is Modest Games' latest addition to the platforming genre, and it really takes all of the criteria of the platform game cliché in a good way, but also not always in the best way. As far as presentation goes, Cuckoo's Lost Pets is pretty top-notch, setting up nice, colorful, and appealing cutscenes right from the get-go, rivaling some higher-budget games. The story is simple but works for its younger target audience. You are tasked with retrieving the lost pets, which have been taken over by a giant frog turned evil, and must visit all of the island's 4 worlds to save them. Does it make sense? Not really, but it does the job setting the plate for this quirky game. Cuckoo's characters and visuals reminded me a lot of Fall Guys, while the gameplay was mostly similar to Sackboy: A Big Adventure with a top-down 3D view in a set camera. You can also play alone or in co-op with up to 4 players, which is probably the most fun way to play the game, but the single-player experience still feels complete and satisfying. The game's main appeal is the use of the lost pets, which unlock a new ability each time you get a new one. There are 5 pets to find in total, 1 in each of the game's worlds. Although this idea sounds promising, I was actually a little bit disappointed in how they went with it. Aside from the flying ability you get to try out at the start of the game, almost none of the other 4 powers you unlock are that interesting, so I was left only mildly satisfied each time I got a new one. The first pet you unlock is simply a firefly that follows you around and lights up dark caves, which isn't really anything special, so I'm not even sure I would really count that as an ability. The second ability was a bit more original and consisted in a pet that would bring up a platform that could be used to climb higher or hang from. Nothing groundbreaking, but it did make for some fun platforming sections, although it took me some time to get the hang of it, as the controls can sometimes be a little bit weird. The third ability you get was my least favorite, which was a samurai armor that allows you to throw objects but also makes you slower and unable to jump. This power was pretty useless as I barely used it, and it was also the most annoying, which is a shame because these levels looked great, but they were definitely the least fun. Thankfully, the next ability was a lot more fun, which would turn you into a ghost, allowing you to pass through certain walls. Again, nothing really original, but it made for some interesting level ideas, and it was one of the only powers that didn't come with some annoying drawback. Then there's obviously the wings, which is the best power in the game as it allows you to glide and double jump, making the levels so much more fun. Unfortunately, you only get these at the very end of the game, so only a few levels let you use them. It actually makes me wish the whole game was like this instead of some of the other disappointing abilities. Like I said, most of the abilities were somewhat of a letdown to me as I found them rather uninteresting, and I could think of so many better ideas for cool special abilities for a platformer that I'm not too sure why these abilities were chosen for the game. I would probably be okay with them if you could use all of them at the same time and switch between them during levels, but the main problem I had with the game is that you can only use one ability in each world and only that one. When I first started, I thought I would be able to return to previous levels with my newly unlocked abilities and maybe explore new places, but I soon realized that this wouldn't be the case. This makes the game a bit predictable and less exciting, especially the replay value. There's a lot more little things I could go on about, like how the game fails to explain how to use the abilities, leaving you guessing what button to press or what to do. And then there's the controls and the camera, or lack of camera, which often makes it hard to know exactly where you're jumping. The controls are also kind of weird as your character moves quite fast yet doesn't jump very high and feels heavy, and there's no double jump, instead it's replaced by a totally unprecise dash jump similar to the Fall Guys game, which doesn't really work that well in a platformer. Overall, I found the controls really strange, but it was manageable. It's also a surprisingly very tough game. Don't be misled by the colorful look, some levels can be pretty brutal. It could be a mix of the controls and the level design, but this game is definitely challenging. Sometimes in a fun way, other times in a pretty frustrating way, thanks to the annoying enemies and some unclear platform jumping, but if you want a challenge, this game will serve you. I could keep going on some small issues I encountered, like audio glitches and other little things like that, but I also want to concentrate on the positive aspects of the game because regardless of the shortcomings, it's also a pretty fun platformer with some really nice visuals. Cuckoos is extremely colorful and vibrant, and the worlds you visit are pretty original, straying from the usual platformer cliches. The graphics are really pretty for a small indie game like this, with so many little details that your eyes could get lost into all of these colors. The levels also have a really fun, upbeat and catchy soundtrack that complements the game perfectly, despite the character voice clips getting a little bit repetitive after a while.
Whoa! Yeah! Whoa! Woo! Yes!
Although I found some of the abilities like the Firefly and the Samurai a bit underwhelming as mentioned, I still want to praise the game for coming up with great ways to utilize the pet's abilities in each world, and there's a great mix of puzzle platforming and good old classic platform jumping to keep things interesting. The boss battles are also pretty impressive and fun, fully using each pet's unique ability and offering a satisfying challenge. The game also has a lot of collectibles to find, and I usually love exploring levels to find every single little thing, but for some reason I didn't really feel compelled to replay any levels in this game, mainly due to the unreliable controls and difficulty level. Maybe playing in co-op would be more fun and easier, so I suspect this is probably the best way to play the game, although I still enjoyed playing alone. However, I did come across one optional level that required 2 players to complete, which I thought was extremely strange considering all of the other levels could be played alone. It's little inconsistent things like that which bring the game down from other bigger budget games. Although Cuckoo's presentation is beautifully executed, it does feel like the game is not fully ready at times and still needs a little bit of work. For example, the game's first world starts as really impressive, and as the game progresses you can feel like the later worlds feel a bit more rushed, with some levels having some really bizarre camera angles and level design. Cuckoos is also a pretty short game, clocking around 4 hours, but it does look like the world map might be open for some future DLC, as there is some strange open space on the right leading me to believe other worlds could be planned. Overall, Cuckoos is a really fun and vibrant platform game with some great ideas, but it's not without flaws, and the flaws unfortunately bring the game down at times. I can tell this game is a really solid effort on a fun, colorful platformer, and a lot of love went into it, but I'm also kind of torn on it because it does have a lot of issues that bring it down, like the wacky controls and the frustrating difficulty level. It has some highlights like the boss battles and the ability to play in co-op, but I wish more was done with the pet's abilities to entice the player to replay the levels. As it is, it's a short and sweet game, but it's best played only once.
Got it!